Call our special meeting, our finance meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Parton,
Here.
Vice Mayor Joyner,
Here.
Counselor Harris,
Here.
Counselor Ellis,
Here.
Counselor Day,
Here.
Counselor Stokes,
I'm here.
Counselor Holloway.
Here.
There.
We have a quorum.
Okay. At this time, is there a motion to allow Counselor Holloway to participate remotely?
So moved.
Okay. Motion's been made by Counselor Stokes and seconded by Counselor Ellis. Is there any discussion? Counselor Holloway, for the record, can you state where you're conducting the meeting from and the purpose for requesting to participate remotely?
Yes, home is still under orders.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit at the end. You said orders?
He's still at home.
Yes.
Medical orders?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Ellis,
Yes.
Counselor Day,
Yes.
Counselor Stokes,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joyner,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. Moving on to our first item of business tonight is our Finance Committee report. Ms. Jordan.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. This is the second quarter budget to actual financial reports to include second quarter vacancy, mid-year savings, overtime report, collection report, accounts payable, debt services, and ACFR update. And following will be a presentation from Davenport, our financial advisors, as well as reports from the treasurer's office. Citywide fiscal year 25 budget to actuals for second quarter. Citywide for second quarter, we're trending about 1.8 million higher in revenues from 25 versus 24. Expenses for second quarter are trending 1.2 million higher for 25 versus 24. Overall, we are trending 24 million less than where we should be. For second quarter, we should be about 50%, or at least 114 million. Next pertinent due date for the city of Hopewell is February 15th for the personal property bills. The increase specific for expenditures is really coming from the 2.5% salary increase that was given to employees last year. Okay, general fund. Any questions on this page? Okay, general fund, budget to actuals for second quarter. General fund for the second quarter is trending 2 million lower in revenues for 25 versus 24. Expenses for 25 are trending 3.8 million higher. Same concept applies for the general fund, that the city should be roughly at 50% or 34 million. Key due dates again for the city are December, February, and June. So one of the reasons why we're trending a little bit lower as far as the real estate is concerned, the comments, if you go to the next page, please. The comments are on the right side, but there was an adjustment we're waiting for some more core logic. There was an issue with that lockbox file that came through for real estate payments that Maya and her group are currently working on. There was $750,000 decrease due to collections from vendor delays for sending out the bills a little bit later than usual. $650,000 decrease due to collections from, again, vendor delay. Other taxes, use of money and property is consistent. And there was a slight decrease for federal revenues because of ARPA, of course. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This vendor delay, is this a new vendor? Is it?
When I looked in the file previously, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maya, I believe it was BMS Direct was the previous vendor. I think this time it was Divico, I believe. That's who the vendor that was selected to be used.
I'm sure we conveyed to them our displeasure.
Yes, ma'am. If you look in the history, Maya did request for the bills to be delivered, mailed out on the 15th of December, and then, however, they didn't get it out until January 3rd.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Enterprise Fund for second quarter is trending 1.5 million higher for 25 versus 24. Expenses for 25 are trending 1.99 million less than expenses in 24. Again, same concepts applies for Enterprise Fund. One of the biggest reasons that the expenses have increased for Enterprise is there are no emergency repairs happening right now, so that spending is increasingly less. Okay.
Ms. Jordan, are we
Yes, sir.
still on schedule for taking the stormwater fee off of the monthly billing and then attaching it onto the real estate tax?
Yes, we need to have a meeting with Ms. Meyer and her team so that
Okay.
we can work on how to get the fee from being separate to put on the real estate bill. Because
Okay.
that's something that we're gonna have to work through with Munis, so.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're still on
Focused on
schedule,
it.
so then that way, Public Works can anticipate that extra revenue coming in.
Yes, sir. Okay. Schools is trending at 1 million more in revenues for 25 versus 24. Expenses are trending 400,000 more in 25 versus 24. Of course, schools funding comes from state and federal revenues, so it's an increase in the revenues received from state and federal. Okay. We have our department budget to actuals. We're on page 11. City manager's budget, we should be at 50%. Across the board, we're at 41%, but the departments that are over 50% have been notated with the false beside it on trend. Majority of the city manager is due to the consultant fees that have to be paid. Let's see, CSA, it will balance out at the end of the year because sometimes expenses come in more frequently in certain months, depending on the children that they have in the program. Information technology is due to IT contracts. It should balance itself out at the end of the year. Sometimes you have vendors that want a full year's payment up front, so it kind of throws off, skews the numbers a little bit. And then, of course, the marina is due to the repairs and maintenance. He's been doing a lot of work over at the marina trying to bring it up to par. Okay? Any questions on the departmental? Okay. I believe that Robert Bob Group had suggested that there be a mid-year vacancy review, a salary savings review. On page 12, you will see the mid-year salary savings review. Again, on the right side is the comments per department of if we can or cannot use the funds. The items that are highlighted in yellow are items that can be used towards capital, unfunded capital projects. The items in green are the enterprise funds that can be used only within their departments. Okay. So there is a total of $203,000 that can be transferred from the general fund to capital projects to be funded. And for enterprise fund, there's a total of $339,000. So we will come back before council, I believe, on the 28th to ask for if that money can be transferred over to certain projects, and we'll notate which projects we're requesting. 86,000 of this 203,000 will go towards the forensic audit payment. Okay. All right. Overtime by department. Majority of our overtime that's increasing over the 50%. Overall, the city is only at 47%. The sewer operations, police, fire is pretty much, well, police and fire is really due to the vacancies. And sewer operations, of course, we had a lot of inclement weather here lately, so of course their overtime went up, having to stay late, make sure the streets and the sidewalks and everything have been safe. Social services is also due to vacancies. Stormwater, there really wasn't anything allotted for that, but they did have a small amount of overtime for the year so far. I would say it was probably due to the rain that we had with the flooding and issues that was happening. The treasurer, there's vacancies. We had to hire a couple of temps. And voter registration, of course, we just had a major election come up that needed additional workers. Okay. Any questions? All right. Our data integrators collection report for December is 94%, which is great for stormwater, solid waste, and wastewater. This report also shows the collection rate for September, October, and November. Accounts payable and debt services, the amount of invoices that were processed for second quarter is 1,854. The dollar amount processed was 7.8 million. The following below for debt services, what was budgeted for debt, what we have paid year to date actual with 3.3. What is still remaining, we're at 45% of our budget for debt payments. We're paying on time. Okay. ACFR update. Dr. Maker and myself have a weekly meeting with David Foley, our external auditors, every Friday at 4:30. For fiscal year 21, the files have been uploaded to RFC. There are still some outstanding files. David did send us a report Friday that showed us what was still pending versus yellow items versus red hot items. So I do have a couple of emails out to see if he received any additional information. I have not heard back yet, but once I hear something, I will definitely let everyone know. For 22 and 20 through 24, once 21 is complete, RFC will move right into 22, and it should be a faster
I
pace.
just have a comment.
Sure.
With regard to any of the items that you're missing, if you do not get an immediate response, could you please let the mayor know?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
For 25, this is what finance is currently doing to make sure that we can produce something on time. Even though 24 probably will not be submitted by 25's due date, we still want to make sure that we have what we need to get the city in compliance with APA. So for 25 so far, finance, we have been creating the ASCFR schedules within the Tyler system. Tyler has a program that allows the city to create our own ACFR, so we've been working on building out the financial statements within that. We also received the mapping for the accounts within Munis from David, and we're starting to work on mapping those out in the system as well. We have been training on the ACFR build. We have our training with the ACFR Builder report with Tyler set for February 17th, and we're doing on-time monthly reconciliation. So the bank reconciliations have been caught up as of December.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So where do you anticipate we are by the end of this calendar year?
By the end of the December, we're probably going to be working on 25, getting that submitted.
So next year, we will not have an on-time clean audit until December of 2026, correct?
Probably not.
That's correct.
However, what I would hope is that while David is working on 24, if we can at least get an adjusted trial balance from David, we can start with 25.
Sure.
So then once 24 is done, all we have to do is run our reports,
Right.
because our stuff will be reconciled and everything.
Right.
Get David the information he needs so he can turn 25 right back
And then
around.
we'll have 26 will be on time.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So
You're
did
welcome.
Jeff Regan get that adjusted,
No,
trial
sir, I haven't
balance?
heard anything back yet. No, sir.
Nothing, okay.
Okay. That's all the information I have for tonight. Next is Mr. Sanderson from Davenport to talk about a bond rating. Yes.
Good evening. Hi, Jimmy Sanderson with Davenport Company. We are financial advisors to the city. Good to see some new faces here. I've got a presentation I know you've gotten, and we're going to walk through it. Some of the background material, members of council that have been here before have seen that, but I thought it would be helpful for some of the newer members of council as well. Flip that, perfect. First page. This is the outstanding tax-supported debt of the city. And you can see it starts, the last major transaction we did was 2015, so going on 10 years ago. And it shows you the original par amount that was issued, what's outstanding as of June 30, what the interest rates were on the loan, what the put date is, and then I've mentioned this in presentations before, but for those that are new, the put date is a date that the bank can ask us to make full payment on that loan, even though the final maturity goes out past that. In the normal course, what we do is either renegotiate with that existing bank or we'll refinance it out with a different bank. But so the first one that's coming up is 2028, and again, we've been looking at that date, thinking about that one transaction, which has got about $6 million left outstanding on it, that we'll need to do something before that time. The total amount that's outstanding is just shy of $56 million originally issued, and currently outstanding, $32.5 million. The next two pages, and we don't need to go through in great detail on those, just give you a sense of what those bonds were issued for. Some of them were refinancing of prior bonds, and that's what you'll see here referenced on this page, page 3 here. But the following page, page 4, shows you what some of the older bonds that were, what the capital projects were actually issued for. The next page. This is what your tax-supported debt service looks like. And you'll see in a minute, but I'm distinguishing tax-supported versus your utility funds that are our enterprise funds that are paid from separate sources of revenues. But you can see here again, our total principal amount outstanding, $32.6 million. You've got interest in the column on the right, the table on the right, and then you've got your total annual debt service shown over there. And you can see graphically how our debt service steps down over time. About a $1 million drop out in FY28, another million or so dropping down in 30 to 33, and then out in 2036 drops down to just north of $500,000 or so. And so that's a typical drop off in a local government's debt service. One of the things that you typically do is, as you go through time, you have more capital projects coming in. You'll add new debt to that, and you can layer it into that existing debt structure, so it's less of an impact to you. One of the ratios that I have down there is your payout ratio, and that is a calculation that looks at how much of your debt do you pay off over the next 10 years. And so currently you're scheduled to pay off 86% of your debt over the next 10 years. That's a very high payout ratio, and obviously that's high in particular because we haven't borrowed materially since 2015. So we've just been paying down our debt, and that last bullet that we noted there, you've reduced your debt by $30 million since 2015. Those are great things to do because it gives you some ability to borrow when we get our audited financial statements in place, and we can go back to the markets and take care of some longer term capital needs that you may have. Flip to the next page. One of the things that we've always done for the city is distinguish, although still paid for by tax funds, the first 3 sets of columns there is the existing, what I call city geo debt. So that is just your typical non-school city capital projects, the police station, fire stations, the administrative building, things like that. And the debt's about $23.8 million currently outstanding. The school's debt's in the middle. There's about $8.8 million left still in the school tax supported debt. Next page. Page 7. All right, so this is the general obligation credit rating history of the city. Again, we're going to talk about the sewer credit in a minute, but the general obligation pledge, for those that may not know, is a promise to pay by a local government in Virginia that if you don't have the revenues to pay it, you'll generate revenues by whatever means you can in order to pay that debt. And if for some reason we can't do that, a judge will enforce us and make us pay it. It's the highest possible credit that you can get. And you can see our ratings were starting back in '89, was the first one with Moody's at A1. That moved up out to 2010, where we were upgraded to AA3 and affirmed again in 2011. And then you can see down at the bottom, 2017, when our audited statements started getting stale, the rating agencies withdrew our ratings because they didn't have timely financials to be able to give a credit rating. And all 3 rating agencies, Moody's, S&P, and Fitch, all withdrew those ratings. And you know, we were at the end there in by 2017, we were in the AA category by all 3 of the national credit rating agencies. That's a very good credit ratings. Jump to the next page. The city has 2 sets of enterprise fund debt, and I want to distinguish between those 2. The first is the regional wastewater bonds. That's what I refer to as the industry bonds, the commission debt that is paid for by both the city but also the industrial users of the plant. There's two transactions outstanding. It's right around $5.7 million that's currently outstanding as of June 24th. The other piece is what I'll call the city sewer system. That's really the distribution where you collect revenues from your residences, but also you've got an agreement with Prince George. You also have an agreement with the jail facility. That's about $19.8 million. That was the last major expansion that we did for the wastewater treatment plant back in 2010 timeframe. Flip to the next page. This is the debt service on the regional debt. That drops pretty significantly out in FY27, going from just shy of $1 million to just about $300,000 there, and then it's level going all the way out to 2045. Pretty typical to borrow on a utility basis 30, maybe even 40 years in the utility systems. General fund, general obligation bonds, typically at the most maybe 30 years, oftentimes 20, 25 years, depending on what you're financing. Next page. This is the debt service on the what I'll call again the city sewer system. Level debt service, pretty standard. This was a brand new credit that we established back in 2010. We borrowed on a level basis to make sure that your debt service was pretty similar, about that 1.6 level amount level each year. Makes setting your rates a little bit easier. There's no fluctuation in your debt obligation. Pretty standard there. Next page. We also had a separate credit rating from each of the 3 credit rating agencies on the city's sewer system. Also very good ratings. They were in the A category. Not uncommon for it to be a little bit lower than the general obligation pledge. But as with the city's GO ratings, those were withdrawn in that 2017-18 timeframe. So next section, I want to talk a little bit about the rating methodology, and we used Moody's here just to pick one of them to focus on how they go about rating local governments. This is a snapshot of where we were back in 2017 before Moody's withdrew your rating. But these are some of the comments that they made on the right side. Some of the strengths: moderately sized tax base, average wealth levels. Your challenges: highly concentrated tax base, decreased levels in financial reserves. That's something we've talked about over the years, is keeping an eye on what our unassigned fund balance looks like. Obviously, the greater that is, the more you have in savings, the more of a credit positive that's going to be. Again, they started to note there, again, the delayed reporting of audited financials. And again, the things that they keep on to see what would happen to get an upgrade, if we were to grow our tax base, improvement in our cash and reserves, they would see that as a positive and potentially moving up. Again, things that can make us go down, degradation of our tax base, diminishing reserves, issuing a significant amount of additional debt too can cause it to go down. Go to the next page. So the rating agencies, both Moody's and S&P in particular, came up with a new methodology. Moody's started the new one in 2022. And over time, they've tried to become a little bit more transparent in how they do their ratings. And you'll see here in a minute, they've got a scorecard that we can replicate to try to give you a score, and ultimately that ties into a number and gives you a rating. But there's still some, a little bit of black box. They have some ability to notch you up or down based on some factors that are really subjective, in my opinion. They're just going to give themselves a little bit of room to be able to move the needle a little bit. But for most part, they are pretty transparent. But you can see sort of over on the right, the way this works is there's a scorecard factors that we're going to talk about in a minute that you can see where you rank versus their scales. Again, there's a notching factor that they can come in and raise you up or lower you down off that initial scorecard outcome. And then there's other considerations that they have that are a little more vague. And then ultimately you get an issuer rating based off of that. The 4 main areas that they look at are shown down on the bottom right: your economy, your institutional framework, and we're going to talk in details about these in a minute, your financial performance, and your leverage in particular being your debt picture. So let's go to the next page if we could. So these are the general areas that they put in their scorecard. Again, this is just Moody's. The economy, and that's made up of 3 different pieces: resident income, full value per capita. That's basically take the full value of the city of Hopewell on a taxable basis and divide it by the number of employees, number of residents you have. Economic growth, each of those are worth 10% of the weight. Your financial performance, available fund balance ratio, liquidity ratio. Just think of that as just what do my reserves look like? The higher your reserves, the better those functions are going to look. They've weighted those out at 20% and 10% for those individual line items. Institutional framework, that's basically how Virginia cities are set up. So all cities in Virginia score the same under that criteria. And then leverage, again, that's really just your debt. What's your debt look like versus your revenues? In particular, that's 30%. And some of these are a little bit more complicated than others. Some of them are ratios that are really calculated by Moody's based off some data that they have that we have access to. And so, if you go to the next slide, I'm going to walk you through sort of where Hopewell scored out based off of, again, this is based on your 2020 audit. So take it for what it is. It was where we stood in 2020, not today. But we took our audit. There are some numbers that we could update to 2023, and we've put the years that on the left-hand side that in particular was the resident income we could do as of 2023. But what this shows here is in the blue box on the left side is the calculation that we come up with for Hopewell for each of these categories. And then as you move to the right, you can see there's a couple boxes, or columns. There's very strong, moderate, weak, and poor. And our input falls within a range within each of those categories. So let's just for purposes of acclimating everybody, the resident income, which is line number 2, our resident income was at 63% of the national average. So we were 63% of that. The higher number there is better. And that falls over in the far right under the poor category. So we're between 50% and 65%. Can't really control that. That's one that it is what it is. But so our scoring to the right is a 10.85, and that's weighted at 10%. So we get a score of 1.08 for that category. And so you do that for each of these, and you can see the areas where Hopewell's where you fall in is highlighted in green. And so you can see that one is the only one that's to the far right. That category is the only one on the far right. The next one down, the full value per capita, we're sort of right in the middle, and in the moderate category. And then everything else falls to the left into the AA and even the AAA category. That is predominantly, in my view, because in 2020 you had strong reserves. We had strong reserves, and we hadn't borrowed money in 5 years either. So our debt to our revenues and reserves ratios were all very strong. And all of this, you do all the math on this, and you go to the far right, still in that top portion of the far right, and we score out at a 3.31. And we've highlighted it down below on the far right. 3.31 falls between 2.5 and 3.5. That scores out to a AA2. So sort of your base rating based in 2020 would have been a AA2, higher than you were actually back in 2017 when the rating was withdrawn. Again, the rating wasn't withdrawn because you had poor financials. The rating was withdrawn because we couldn't demonstrate to the rating agencies what our financials looked like based off audited financials. So that's why they were withdrawn. So this shows that our financials improved from 2017 to 2020 at least. The next slide, I thought it would be helpful for you to see sort of where you compared to some of the surrounding localities. And in this one, again, same categories going down the left side. They're monitoring, again, resident income, say, is the first one. We were at 63%, again, based off of 2023. Chesterfield County, very wealthy county. They're 131% of the national average. City of Richmond, 81%. Colonial Heights, 98%. Petersburg, 64%. And you go on down. And again, I think it's interesting to see, and we color-coded these by where you fall: green in the AAA, sort of beige in the AA, and pink in the A or below. Hopewell looks favorably when you look at these in your fund balances and your debt ratios. So again, sort of the financial performance right there in the middle. We're at available fund balance. Our available fund balance ratio is 54%. Chesterfield is at 93%. We're lower than that, but we're higher than the City of Richmond, Colonial Heights, and the City of Petersburg. Same thing with our liquidity ratio. Again, we're lower than Chesterfield, but we're right there with Richmond, higher than Colonial Heights, and right in line with Petersburg as well. But as you move down this, one of the things that I wanted to point out, there's an unadjusted score is the second to the last line in the bottom. Unadjusted score. We scored out at that AA2 level. Chesterfield scores out at the AA1, but they were upgraded from there to a AAA. And that's predominantly because they got a one-notch upgrade because they are in the Metro Richmond statistical area, and it's the state capital, and so they gave them an upgrade because of that. City of Richmond, same thing. They scored out at a AA2. Moody's upgraded them one notch to AA1. Colonial Heights, they stayed even. They were at AA2, and their final score was AA2. The one I wanted to point out was Petersburg. Petersburg scores out at a AA2, similar to us, but the final rating that Moody's came out was an A1, and that's predominantly because of delayed financial reporting by Petersburg. So Moody's notched down 2 notches from their fundamental raw score. So we do have a scorecard that we could look at and basically come within a few notches of where your final rating will be, but it may be notched up or down depending upon some other factors, in particular sort of a delayed ability to produce your audits. And it's one of the things that we've talked about before. You know, I think when the time is right and we get our audits up to date, we can go back to the rating agencies and get actual ratings from them. But it's going to take some time for us to sort of build that track record of being able to produce timely financial statements so that they can then be comfortable that they put out a rating, the next year they're going to be able to get a timely audit and maintain that rating and not have to withdraw it as well. So Mr. Mayor, I'll stop there. That was a lot of information. I know there's a lot of numbers here, but happy to answer any questions or walk through it in greater detail with anybody.
Vice Mayor Joyner?
Yeah, I have a question. You know, looking at 2020, and I appreciate all that. The main question is, we just spoke to the CFO, and we are not going to have our first on-time clean audit submitted until December of 2026. Okay, that's, almost 2 years, 2 years from now. And so once we get that, what is your estimation? Let's just, if we get our on-time clean audit, and we have 3 consecutive, which we know we need 3 consecutive before we're generally going to be looked at, or at least that was the criteria. I don't know if that's changed or not. 3 consecutive on-time clean audits before we would be able to really go out and get a rating agency to look at us again. So what's your time frame based upon these actuals? What time frame? And we have the school system here, and they've got capital needs. Okay, I think it's important for us to understand what date we're looking at, where we could go to issue bonds.
So I would be curious to know when our 24 audit's going to be done, right? So right around now is when everybody's getting there, has their 24 audits completed.
Right.
And sort of the expectation, just going back to just listening to you all over the years, but once we sort of get one audit done, we're going to be able to get them done more or less shortly after that.
Right.
And so I think if we have our 24 audits completed, and we're depending when, say, this year that's done, right?
Say by the end, suppose we get, Mr. Jordan, I don't want to put you on the spot, but 24, when do you estimate 24 being done? I mean, do you have any idea?
Mr. Foley is stating that it should take about 90 days to complete the remaining audits, 21, 22, 23, 24.
Each of those would be 90 days.
Yes.
Each 90 days, yes. So,
24
yeah.
in December.
Right. So not 90 days to get it all done. I wish, but
90
yeah,
days.
yeah.
Looking at the timeline, we were thinking maybe hopefully September, October, we would have 24, and then we would roll right into
25 and then 26.
Right.
Got it. So maybe by the end of this year would be,
Yes, ma'am.
by the end of this year would be a reasonable target date. So based upon that, what do you think?
So let me take a step back for a second, because I
Yeah.
think a credit rating is very helpful.
Sure.
And it's one that we've used in the past. You don't have to have a credit rating, right? There are other avenues for us to borrow in Virginia that are very, very good. Now, we've used a credit rating because it allows us for a couple other things. It allows us to structure debt a little bit more how we might want to do
Right.
it and go to the market whenever we want to go to the market.
Okay.
But I think I last talked with you all, I did have some specific conversations with banks, which we've done before. You can borrow money in the public markets. You can borrow directly from a bank. You can borrow through the Virginia Public School Authority for schools. You can borrow through the Virginia Resources Authority for other governmental capital projects as well. And so I guess, Ms. Joyner, I don't want you to think that just because you don't have the credit rating that we can't maybe try to find ways to fund capital that you may need.
Okay.
And that, though, is going to depend on when those audits are available.
Right.
The conversation that I had with some banks was when the audits are up to date,
Yes.
then the slate's wiped clean.
Well, exactly.
Unlike the rating agencies that are still going to
Yes.
take that into consideration, the banks are looking at it going, if we can tell what the credit is, we're comfortable with the
So
financials.
maybe in a year or 2 years, we might be able to borrow from the banks.
We could, and I think it's at least worth some conversations as those audits start to roll out.
Right.
Whether we can go to the Virginia Resources Authority or the Virginia Public
Right.
School Authority and see what we can get them to be comfortable outside of the actual audited financial
Right.
statements, whether it's audited financial statements plus unaudited financials.
Okay.
That may help us go through them without the need for the actual audits.
I'm sure we'll probably have to have some additional conversations, but I think it's
Absolutely.
important for us to understand just sort of timelines. We really are handicapped at this point in time.
Yep, that's right.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Sanderson? Seeing no lights? All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Moving on to our next item of business is the treasurer's report. Ms. Bowling?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so the first slide we're going to look at is going to be the City of Hopewell weekly cash flow report. And on this one, I would like to just work backwards, starting at 12/30/2024. Basically, let's take a look here. The beginning cash balance, 12/30/2024, $13,411,729.96 was the beginning cash flow. Our total credits in, $4,159,306.93. And then taking a look, debits out, $1,876,382.72. Net cash flow, $2,282,924.21. Ending balance, $15,694,654.17. So basically, if we work backwards, you will see that the major discrepancies are when we have week 26 and 24 are due to payroll. Would you like me to go through the figures? But from the report, the differences are going to be for weeks of payroll. Okay. Any questions on this? Go ahead. And we're looking at the meals tax, business license, and meal tax collection report. All right, if we come down to 2024, we're 100% in bank franchise, 98.07% in business and other services. Lodging, we're at 94.98. Meals tax, 94.95. We're still actively collecting in these areas. I don't see there being an issue with getting those bumped up from the 94% above that level. And taking a look at business and other services, we are down to continuing to collect $376, so we're at 93.23%. And we don't foresee an issue on that either. Any questions on business and meals tax collection report? Previous year, we're at 99.62%, and then 2022, 99.77%. So we don't have any foreseeable issues getting to those levels. And for the next, we're going to take a look at the real estate collection report. And from the Treasurer's Office, I have to say thank you guys for your patience. We've all been working as a team, and we're doing our best to pull this out and make sure that we continue to bring the revenues into the city. So just taking a look here, we go down to 2024. Machinery and tools, first half, 100.01%. Second half, 99.35% collected. taking a look at the personal property, we are actively collecting those. The bills did mail out on January the 3rd. And as we said, we did use DiveCo, which was a different vendor than we used previously. There were some issues with getting the files uploaded in the mail, the billings out. So with the extension of 3/7, I'm going to be working on the flyer to make sure the citizens know that that extension has been granted. And I feel we don't see any. It's a lot of revenue coming in. We have a lot of citizens paying. This is as of 1/3, so there's going to be a lot of changes. The bills went out 1/3. So this report is going to be very much updated. Okay, public service, same thing. This is actively being collected. The real estate supplemental bills are at 46.59%. I will focus on resending those bills so we can make sure we can get that up. But those are the supplemental bills that were issued after the regular real estate bills went out. All right, real estate first half, we're at 98.83%. And the second half, the last time I was in front of you, we were working through CoreLogic to get the $2.9 million applied, as Stacy did state. We did have some issues with the file. It came over to us with an incorrect format, but with me being new, I couldn't just look at it and realize that some of the data was incorrect. And now that we realized that it worked with CoreLogic, got the data input correctly, and was able to apply that 2.9, and now we're shy $680,037.29 on the second half of real estate. Actively working with Loretta, our other main mortgage servicing company. Working with them now to get a check sent for 55 parcels that I know is going to be on the way. We're working actively with that. And at that 93.82%, after we finish with Loretta, I believe that's going to bump us above that 93.82. Okay. Any questions there? All right. In our last slide, we went over this the last time as well, as far as cash and accounts, total cash. The slide, this is updated as of 9/30/2024, $14,751,698.03. Total investments, $25,083,248.52. Total cash and investments, $39,834,946.55. And that's as of 9/30/2024. As far as the FY25. Any questions on that slide? And any other questions regarding the treasurer's office report or anything?
Not a question specifically for you, but I think it's more of a joint question for your office, probably Ms. Reason with Commissioner Revenue and Ms. Jordan. Have you guys given any more thought about the idea of breaking up the personal property so it's like real estate where you pay half at the beginning of the year and half later?
This is the first I'm hearing of that.
Okay.
This is the first that I've heard of that. So, I mean, if that's...
It was something that we mentioned at a previous meeting, and I just don't know if you guys have had time. I know you guys have been doing a good job working through issues in your office, and so I just didn't know if there was any more conversation on that.
No conversation has started on that. Conversation has started. You did mention the stormwater. Mm-hmm. Conversations have started between our office and the stormwater committee to see how that's going to best, work for the city. Okay. But those conversations have started. But the PP, personal property going in two halves, has not started.
Okay. Only reason that I ask is I think it might, end up helping with cash flow, through the year, so that way we're not just all reliant so heavily at one given time for one billing. And
it can help the treasurer's office as well with
right.
the influx of payments. So I understand that. Okay. If you guys discuss and let us know how we can, help and incorporate that.
Okay. Vice Mayor Jordan?
I just have one quick. The headers, this form right here, just at the top, I think it should say 10/31/24 and 11/30/24. You got 23 up there. Just could cause trouble later on if you're looking at it. See this page 1 of 1 where your bank and investment balances. See those top headers? I do see in green. Shouldn't it be 10/31/2024 instead of 23?
You're correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I was okay.
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
just want to change that.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a little.
And to address those 11/30/2023 figures, you're exactly right. Total cash $11,351,601.13.
Yeah. Just want to make sure I'm.
Yes,
right
ma'am.
thing.
That'll be
you.
updated.
Thank you. Okay.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your time. Any other questions?
I'll see you in the lights. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our last item for the Finance Committee meeting. Ms. English?
Good
Sir, Mayor, I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Was there something else that was supposed to be in this package?
No, we're moving on to the school discussion. You should have a chart in your packet. The one that's showing on the screen right now.
Unfortunately, they still don't have it set up where I can see what's on the screen.
Okay.
And you said it's supposed to be a chart in here?
Yeah, there should be a table.
Capital improvement needs.
What would you say, Madam Vice Mayor?
Capital improvement needs, it has a, it says, school board finance director report, and then there's a chart behind there. You don't have that? It should be in the agenda packet.
No, I
No?
don't see.
Okay.
I don't
Take
see
a
that. The
screenshot
last.
with your phone and just send it to them.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right, go ahead, Dr. Hackney.
Good evening. It's great to see you, council. It's great to be before you again. It's been a long time. I already know Ms. Stokes. I am especially anxious to get to know Ms. Day and Mr. Ellis better. We're really looking forward to this partnership and welcome our new council members. On behalf of our school board, we look forward to working with all of you. I would like to introduce our board just in case some of you don't know everyone. So this is Ruth Johnson, one of our board members. This is Linda Heislip, one of our board members. Ms. Heather Bennett, one of our board members. Our vice chair, Mr. Chris Reaver, and our chair, Mr. John Griffin. Just wanted to make sure everybody had a face with a name. Just a point of clarification, council, we are not here to discuss our budget request for this year. We've just officially begun that process towards the middle of December and are still in the process of developing our needs, and it will be a while before we're ready for that conversation. So tonight's focus is, from our perspective, is to make you aware, and especially our new counselors, of the ongoing and growing list of critical capital projects that have increased, and as you would expect, as a result of the city's inability to fund capital projects of this magnitude. We simply want to plant a seed tonight with a confidence and a trust that we can work on these things together, understanding each board's limitations, but recognizing that the longer we wait, the larger these estimates become. As our veteran counselors I know, it's been several years since council's been able to fund our capital needs, and we've understood that, and we've done the best we could with the funds that you have given us, and we continue to be grateful for that. While we were able to use some COVID recovery monies to cover some of our capital needs, we have not had the money with which to fully respond to a number of critical and expensive projects, which we'll talk about briefly tonight. We've done the best we can with maintaining our systems, our equipment, our school buses, our buildings, etc. But as I mentioned, the longer we push out these existing needs, the more risk involved, and ultimately the greater the cost will be for all of us. As such, our board and I see tonight as an opportunity not to alarm or scare you, but we have significant needs that we must start to prioritize and plan for before we have an emergency. We cannot afford to address or create an alternative plan for. As you may also remember, and for the benefit of our new counselors, for over 25 years, most of that prior to my coming, but about 5 of it during my tenure here, an informal agreement existed between the two boards that allowed the schools at year end to roll over any savings they had accrued into what was then called a building bus replacement fund. But it was also authorized to fund, and it did, many capital projects similar to what we will discuss with you tonight. That option was understandably eliminated several years back, and both boards are paying for that now, in my opinion. Up until that point, most, if not all, of our capital needs were addressed with that fund that had, as some of you might remember, grown significantly at one point historically. So hold that thought, as in the end, this may be something we have the opportunity to revisit so we can truly help with how we are going to figure this out together. So you have before you an updated estimate of all of our outstanding unfunded capital needs. We're not asking you for money for these yet. We just have to figure out how we are going to address these needs together. As the longer we wait, not only the higher the dollar figures will climb, but the greater the risk. And we will explain to you where we are with the level of risk that we are anticipating with some of these urgent projects and systems failures. Tonight, we're only going to discuss those highlighted in the red. As you can see, a 3-level prioritization of urgency of all of our needs forecasting forward. The red, we believe, are urgent. These are our most urgent needs and some of the highest price tags. The next level of priority, which we won't get into tonight unless you want us to, are the orange. The orange are not as urgent, but they are very important. And we would love to discuss those with you at maybe our next finance meeting. The yellow are also important, as you can see, but not as important as the orange. So we felt like it would make most sense to spend our time together tonight looking at the red, understanding the red, a little deeper dive at the red, and just thinking about that till the next time we meet. Shortly, I will provide a brief overview of each of those priorities in the red highlighted section. I intend to call on Janelle English, our finance director. For those of you who don't know her, this is Janelle English, to help with any finance-related questions, and Berlin Gregory, our operations director, for further clarification and understanding of our building and system needs. We want you to know, before we get out of the gates, so to speak, that we are all in this together, and we mean that. We are and will continue to explore as many creative funding options as are out there, but we are very limited in most of those resources until the city can again help us with their ability to borrow money. Right now, we're not even eligible for a number of school construction grants, as these require the city's ability to match the funds applied for at around 50%, and most also require a bond rating for the local government. I don't know all of the answers, but I do know the need, and we've got to start talking about it to solve it together. And on behalf of the board, we are very grateful for this opportunity to get the conversation started. So if you will refer to the chart, the red, orange, and yellow chart. As I said, I'm going to focus on the red. The first three are around replacement, critical replacement of our HVAC system at Hopewell High School. The existing system must be replaced. Underground pipes are failing. We have significant water flow issues, and a number of our compressors are failing, and other components are in desperate need of replacement. This replacement system would be very comprehensive, so we have phased it out in 3 phases, 3 logical phases, with the total estimated cost of $13 million. Phase 1 would cost approximately $7 million, Phase 2 approximately $2.5 million, Phase 3 $3.5 million. And if, with the board's blessing, I'll just go through all 6 of the red and then we'll come back. Is that okay? Okay. The second is our bus replacement schedule. the Virginia Department of Education does not prescribe, and I wish they did, a specific retirement age or mileage limit for school buses. Instead, school divisions determine when to retire buses based on a number of logical factors like the age of the bus, the mileage on it, the maintenance history, etc. Surrounding school divisions typically retire buses somewhere between 15 and 20 years of service. Next year, we will have 11 buses reaching the 15-year mark period, necessitating, we believe, replacement to ensure their safety and reliability. A phased replacement schedule after that point would be to replace, again, using the same process to determine eligibility, 4 the next year in 26-27, 3 in 27-28, and 5 would meet the eligibility in 28-29. One of our significant challenges, which I will reference again when we hopefully have the opportunity at some point to talk about the Building Bus Replacement Fund history, is that lead times for new buses and several of these projects will span at least into 2 fiscal years. So in this case, the first estimated phase is $2 million. But right now, the lead time to purchase one new bus is 1.5 to 2 years. So we've got to figure out a way to responsibly budget in 1 year, but not be able to deliver on what we're purchasing for the next year. The third in the red area is a number of controls in our HVAC systems. We really need to update the controls at all of our schools to enhance energy efficiency, provide centralized system management, and reduce operational costs to maintain the current control systems. That estimated cost is $2.5 million. 4 and 5 are related to roofing on 2 of our schools. Number 4 is a partial roof replacement at our middle school. We have been doing this in phases with by wings, and the cost of the remaining partial roof needed for CGW would be approximately $1.5 million. Harry James is in better shape, but they need the roof membrane on a portion of the building needs replacement due to wear and tear, and the project would require replacing any tin that must be removed and install a new membrane at the estimated cost of $225,000. And the last is a project we've been working on for at least the last year, and is in our current budget, to the tune of $400,000 to become ADA compliant with the WELL after-school program at the school board office. We need to install an elevator to provide wheelchair access to the 3rd floor for our students and any of our potential staff. That cost would be $400,000. It has been a very slow process, and that will not be deliverable in this fiscal year. So that is another example of where were we able to roll over that money into a savings account. We could potentially cover that. We could go ahead and purchase order it now, but not pay for it until the next fiscal year. I will just highlight one, because we've talked about it, I think, ever since I've been here, and this is my 10th year. It is an orange, and it's not urgent. It's very important, but it's not urgent yet. It has the potential to become that, and that is our building at Woodlawn. And again, we've had lots of conversations around that. That will be the biggest project that we embrace, certainly or not, in my tenure. But we were very intentional in believing that that can wait on behalf of some of these other more urgent needs. So if you have any specific questions, technical questions, I would love to call on Mr. Gregory, who can help answer them. But that is, and unless you want me to go further into the orange and yellow, we just thought we would concentrate on the most important needs at this time.
Vice Mayor Joyner?
Could I just, the acronym RTUs, what does that stand for?
Rooftop units.
Okay, all right.
You didn't do, I knew that. I didn't either.
All right, thank
So
you.
if you were shooting from the hip, that was a good guess.
Thank you. All right.
Dr. Manker?
One question, have we considered a leasing program for the buses?
Can I ask the same thing?
We are looking at that. We have not fully considered that. Did you want to speak to that?
That is something that we
Yeah,
are
yeah.
looking at.
We're looking at it.
Because that can help get the buses sooner than later, and then we, pay over time,
Yeah.
a little over
Yeah.
time till we get there.
Yeah.
I see that being something that we can tackle sooner than later.
Okay. Did you have your light? Okay. I don't have the new names up yet, so I got to count the lights over. Counselor Stokes?
I was noticing that the partial roof replacements are in Carter G. Woodson and Harry James. Am I correct? CGW stands for Carter G. Woodson and Harry E. James. I noticed there within our wards was one in Ward Carter G. Woodson is in my ward 6 and Harry James is in 2. Is there any, and I haven't had a chance to meet with the CDBG funding and see what's eligible under funding, but you may want to consider some of the community development block grants because they benefit low to moderate income projects.
Okay.
I was going to say people, but projects and people. And roof replacements is like one of the number one categorized payments that they do, and you're in
We'll be
the
happy to look into that.
CDBG
I'm not
ward.
aware of that.
I would,
But we'll look into it.
and you might want to look at that and submit that to also the CD.
No, you're hitting it. No, that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, CDB into the CDBG budget, and it may not be a whole lot of money, but it may be something to offset any, because that's pretty important. I see you have it in the red. But I don't know. But at any rate, I wanted to make that comment.
Vice Mayor Joyner and then myself.
I'm sorry, with regard to makes me real nervous, these HVAC issues.
Yes.
Particularly at the high school, that kind of thing. I mean, do y'all see a sort of a catastrophic failure in I know you can't really plan for those things, but I mean, it's certainly a possibility, and I mean, it's such a huge disruption.
Yeah.
And, that makes me very nervous.
Yes. Well, we are having failures in the hottest part of the summer
Yeah.
in certain areas and classrooms.
Right.
Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am. Hey, just to speak to where it's at right now.
Yeah.
We have compressors that we're holding that we've already purchased because we know they're going to fail much sooner than they should due to water flow issues. So compressors that should last 15 years last maybe 2 years.
oh, wow.
And so we're holding those and putting them in, waiting to put them in until the hottest part of the year. But Siemens won't even cover some of the compressors now because they know due to the water flow issues that they're just going to fail. So they can't warranty them any longer. So it has reached a point where the issues are significant and they have large implications to the entire school.
Yeah, that's what I'm very concerned about that.
Yes,
I really
ma'am.
am.
And there's no
For the city.
simple, and Dr. Hackney kind of spoke to this too, but the lead time to get some of these projects
Yes.
completed
Yeah.
makes it a little more urgent.
Yeah.
Up to now, Ms. Joyner, we have been able to relocate some classrooms. We've been able to bring in some small units and cooling.
Right.
But we are extremely nervous that the more classrooms, we're going to run out of space. And
Yeah.
then are we going to be looking at, temporary housing for classes? I don't know. But
Yeah, I
it's
mean, that's
it's
a
our
real
number
concern.
one
It's a
concern.
real concern.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you know what your projected savings are right now, like kind of like what Ms. Jordan did for us. Like, she kind of did a forecast of where we are right now, like mid-year,
Yeah.
and where we are, where she anticipates us in 6 months. Have you guys?
We do. We
Okay.
Do. Do you want to speak to that? We look at it every month.
Okay.
You gonna do it by memory? Yeah. No. This one. Like the word.
Yeah, so it was about, every month I do that, I go through and look at our vacancy savings, because as you know, teachers are hard to find. So we do have a lot of vacancies, but we've also had to pay some agencies to come in to give us teachers, which is expensive too. But yes, every month I do look at the vacancy savings and use that to try to fund things that might not be in the budget. I believe it was 1.4.
That's my recollection. We
Yeah,
don't have it, but we have it. I just
Yeah,
don't
we
have
do
it.
have it, we just don't have it right in front of us. I know it was over $1 million.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is because we're going through at our next meeting to do some mid-year adjustments. I think some savings that we can put towards a capital project. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Jordan. But maybe if you guys are forecasting that as well, that I don't know if you need like a council approval for something like that, but maybe look at doing something like that. I think could end up helping. And then also with our meeting coming up next week, maybe it's a good idea to just reach out to them and see if one of these maybe smaller projects we might be able to help out with.
Yeah.
Just like Ms. Stokes said, I don't know how much money we have for CDBG money, but I think that's a wonderful example of a project that could be utilized in helping everybody. And if it only covers a third of the project, the city might be able to do something like that in our upcoming meeting.
Yeah. And Mayor Parton, thank you for not only asking that, but following up with that, because we, and I've said this so many times, but I'm going to say it again, we don't do massive spend downs.
Right.
We've promised that to this council. We do, as Janelle just indicated, there are things that aren't, right now we're so short on bus drivers. We are literally considering another contract with, what's the name of it? Student First, that we brought in before another time we were in a crisis situation. They're very expensive, but they get the job done, and our kids get to school on time. And but that's obviously we've had to find monies to pay for that in savings. So we would love to talk about that, whether it is that we spend it on some of those projects in this fiscal year, or whether we work again to develop, and we can call it something different. But the concept and the wisdom of the previous council and boards to allow us what you just initiated a conversation, we would have to roll it over, and we figured out technically how to do that better for auditing purposes. But once we gave it back and you reappropriated it to us, we could go ahead and put the orders in now, save that money for delivery of 11 buses next year. So we just really, we hope we can open that conversation again. I know that some people have struggled with that, but it was the right thing to do. And board members that were on the board before I came here as a superintendent 10 years ago, they can't remember a time our board came to you all for a project of any of these types, because they could cover it and plan for it and save for it if that was realistic. We just found out, and we're knocking on wood, but the caboose bill looks like it may be bringing us, if our average daily membership stays about the same, another $600,000 that we weren't anticipating. Mr. Griffin's first recommendation to me, well, really, I think it might have been more than a recommendation, but that's okay, was, can you spend that on buses? Perfect example. But I can't get a bus by June 30th.
Right.
So I've got to have some kind of mechanism to save that money, however we decide we can do. But that was a really wise thing and would help both of our boards if we could get back to that. So call it whatever it is, change the process. But if you can tell us that sooner than later, we will conserve every dollar of that. But otherwise, we've got to do what you just said. pick and choose the smaller things and see if we can, but most of the things that we would buy on this urgent list, and this is where we've gotten into trouble, because without an intent, we have potentially wasted monies in purchasing things that we could deliver by, and needed, not just anything, but things that we needed by June 30th, when we would have much more prioritized some of these things if we could save it to get at a purchase a year from now or 2 years from now. So hopefully we can have that conversation more. And but yes, we are more than willing to work with you on that and to use existing funds and savings that we can find to fund these things. But as you can see, a lot of them are really big ticket items. But a couple of school buses here and there. I think this price of school bus now is $150, $170. But that $600,000 that we anticipate in the caboose bill could buy almost 4 of
With
those.
the leasing, and obviously a leasing possibility.
Exactly. Yes, and we will look into that and report back to you.
And Dr. Hatton, one more question I have for you.
Yes, ma'am.
I do share the concerns of Vice Mayor about the HVAC. I'm wondering if we can consider financing, looking into a financing option. I mean, it's $7 million, so obviously we have $7 million, but financing may be an option.
Well, and Dr. Maker, we've talked about that, and we wanted to talk to you all about that first. We've talked about maybe a performance contracting arrangement, like it's not new, but where, some of the cost of that financing would be offset by energy savings with a new, better system. So we're going to look into all of those things. We can't really put it out to bid, and we can't, until we know that we can, something of that magnitude that we can, be true to the intent to pay on it, but we are looking at all of those options. We also have some support at the Department of Ed and the General Assembly. Delegate Coyner is working actively on our behalf to help with the Woodlawn, either renovation or complete replacement. The state superintendent is very invested in our school district and has asked for an estimate of that, a more updated guesstimate is what this is for that project, and hopes to potentially go to the General Assembly and ask for funds to support that. So we really are trying to find as many ways in which we can do this without coming to you all, because we know your limitations. But if you would trust us for a couple of years to build a fund and explain obviously every step of the way, where it came from, how it got there, we will do our due diligence, and I can tell you we can hit some of these smaller things and maybe create the funds for a payment on a finance agreement if we can make that happen as well. So tonight was really just about, we have a little bit of a problem, but we're optimistic, and if we can work together and we can save, and ideas like Councilor Stokes and other potential options, we'll embrace this together and be good stewards of the city's money. But we are in a critical situation with some of these circumstances, and we appreciate your understanding of that.
So, Ms. Jordan, is there something that we could do, like policy-wise? Because I know we got hit on the audits for this, that they're it's something that just kept coming up and issues arose from it. But is there something that we can do in terms of our policies that we could do something like they're saying, where their end of the year money that if they run under budget, that they can take that and use it for a capital expense?
The city can have the option that they can create an MOU or something with schools in regards to at the end of the fiscal year, whatever monies are left over that they did not spend, that it can go back, it'll come back to us first, and then we'll appropriate bring it back to the schools for specific projects.
Okay.
I haven't seen, I was talking to Dr. Baker earlier, in preparation for this meeting, if there's anything that you have paperwork that exists previously for any kind of agreement between the city and the schools, that you can share with us.
We can't find it, and it's way pre-me.
Yeah.
There are people on both boards, I don't know, that remember, if there was actual action, but we can't, nobody.
It is in
We'll do some research on our
That'd be
side.
great. And Mayor Parton, the only thing that and correct me if I'm wrong, but that we were told and understood from council and the auditors was a technicality.
Right,
That-
that's
that
not just,
it
we've
had-
done so good to get where we are and
Yes,
cleaning
yes,
everything
yes,
up.
yes.
I just don't want us to
No.
backtrack that way. So I think like a good MOU policy of some sort
Yeah.
that's in writing, votes on both sides, is taken, and it comes back to the city for closeout, but the reappropriation goes right into it for the specific project.
May we draft that?
Yeah.
I mean, we'll be happy to try that, and then your attorneys take a look
Yeah.
at it, and
Yeah.
unless you'd rather do that.
No.
We're happy to take a stab
Save
at
us
it,
money
and
on
like
our
you
side.
said, there are other districts that do this. I mean, it's very common. I think it would set us all up to do our part in this. That's great news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor
I
Jordan.
just have one comment. I look forward to a collegial relationship between the school board, not an antagonistic one that I think has been existing for the last several years. And I look forward to a collegial, relationship. And it's important for these, it's just absolutely vital for both entities to understand and work with one another. Anyway, that's kind of.
Thank you for that. We want that too.
And I remember, my late husband was on the school
Yes.
board when that bus fund thing came around. It was in the 90s.
Okay.
And I remember him discussing it, what they had talked about and that kind of thing. And so maybe it is in some meeting, something, but it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But in any case, I look forward to, us re-engaging and doing
Thank
something
you.
that
We appreciate
we
that.
can back up. So anyway, thanks.
I'm the old fart on the, in the group here, so, rely on my memory. It was Dr. Daly who was part of that regime. And I say that, that memo of understanding lasted 24 years. And I understand why it stopped. We were in crisis. There was some money. You needed money, and it is what it is. That fund, over time, was salvation. It saved the city. It saved the schools. And I remind us all that these are not normal budget items. This is, I understand the sanitation department and waterworks and fire department and police department. They're all important pieces and parts. But understand that this is a statutory obligation. We have to educate our children. If we don't do that, we go to jail. And I don't want to be over dramatic, but there's not many services that we provide that are statutory in nature. You must do this. Your children have to go to school. They have to be safe. They have to be fed. And that's the business that we're in. From a legacy perspective, and I'll echo what Dr. Melody said.
Hackney.
She's my friend.
Forgot my name.
Showing the old age there.
Melody said we're not in the business of spending. We have $3 left. Buy another toilet paper roll. That's not the way that we work. If we have money left, we have money left. If we don't, we don't. In the history of that fund, the least that we contributed to that fund was $25,000, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you got $25,000, it goes into the kitty. On the high side, we contribute $1 million to that fund, and a lot of that is personnel savings. But I think the concept is important, and we're at a juncture right now. And I don't mean to press this, but Dr. Hackney mentioned two things. That elevator, $400,000. It's in the budget this year. Yeah, that's something that we're not going to get this year. So that has to be, part of this urgent discussion. That's not lost in the ground. There might be another thing too, but anyway, thank you for.
Thank you. Anything else?
Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you guys
We
so
appreciate
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, it is 7:20. Do I have a motion to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 to discuss and consider board and commission appointments, the assignment and performance of specific appointees and employees of City Council, and discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, and to the extent such discussion will be aided thereby.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Counselor Holloway and seconded by Counselor Ellis. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Ellis?
Yes.
Counselor Day?
Yes.
Counselor Stokes?
Yes.
Counselor Holloway?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joyner?
Yes.
Counselor Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Parton?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Closed session.
So moved.
I'll second it. Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Joyner and seconded by Mayor Parton. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Ellis? Counselor Day?
Yes.
Counselor Stokes?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joyner?
Yes.
Mayor Parton?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. Certification, please.
Certification pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3712D, where only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and 2, identified in the closing meeting motion discussed in the closed meeting.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Ellis?
Yes.
Counselor Day?
Yes.
Counselor Stokes?
Yes.
Counselor Holloway?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joyner?
Yes.
Counselor Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Parton?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the client engagement agreement with Sands Anderson for interim city attorney services?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Joyner and seconded by Counselor Holloway. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Ellis?
Yes.
Counselor Day?
Yes.
Counselor Stokes?
Yes.
Counselor Holloway?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joyner?
Yes.
Counselor Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Parton?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. At this time, is there a motion to appoint Robert Gaines to the Board of Zoning Appeals, Brenda Pelham to the Hopewell Redevelopment Housing Authority, and Dominic Holloway to the Virginia Gateway Region Board?
So moved.
I'll second. All right. Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Joyner and seconded by Counselor Stokes. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Ellis?
Yes.
Counselor Day?
Yes.
Counselor Stokes?
Yes.
Counselor Holloway?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joyner?
Yes.
Counselor Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Parton?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Not yet. Sir Mayor, before you do that, also got to direct, I believe, the clerk in regards to the legislation to correct the I don't know if you ever sent that correction. I think it's supposed to be myself and Councilor Day on that.
1 minute remaining.
We already sent out the appointment letters.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that came out. I didn't see it. Okay.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
That's right.
Any opposed? Hearing none, meeting has been adjourned.
Great meeting, guys.